There has been no attempt since Jesus was here to tell humanity about their origins, as it was determined that the genes that were infused into the race were like time delay capsules. This was not intentional, but nevertheless this is a result of the mating. These time delays have been twice as slow in releasing their built-in knowledge as they would have been on the planet they came from, due to the dense animal bodies into which they were inseminated. The knowledge is just beginning to explode inside some people now, like the first stage of a time-release aspirin. The truth is all so simple that one wonders how man could have messed it up so badly. It is the utter rejection of life on other planets and other solar systems that is the basic cause of continuing ignorance. This is the direct fault of the churches. They have taken the teachings that the Space Fathers gave to humanity in the caveman stage of evolution and never let these teachings keep pace with evolving humanity. Consequently, today, they are basing their teachings on what is equal to a fairy tale for children with a hint of right or wrong action in it. The ostrich can only keep his head buried in the sand for so long, humanity also. They simply will have to face the fact of their beginnings and that they have believed fairy tales, if they really honestly do believe them. These fairy tales are doing much harm by holding back the evolving man from reaching his full potential of a divine soul. This is the ultimate goal for humanity. This picture of the new creation is being formed and painted and planned by all humanity. The wishes for a better life in the thoughts of many are drawing a tree here, a stream there, and so on this painting. The more awakening and educating of humanity that can take place, the more beautiful this picture will be. But the picture will be drawn regardless. It must be. This is evolution. The new creation is to be the age of creativity, as the inner journey must come forward through the physical body's expression. The only way this expression of the soul can take place is through the arts. Each must learn to express his inner self and his feelings in an outward way, thus the age of creativity. At this time, we are really in a revolution against the outdated practices of the manufacturing age. It must change, and those who cannot adjust their thoughts and change with it are the ones who will suffer the most. There is always a difficult period of adjustment when a revolution involving the people's ability to clothe and feed and house themselves is at stake. We are going through a sociological change. This change in society must come about. This changeover from the manufacturing age to the age of creativity has put today's world in the throes of beginning chaos. The economy is changing into that of becoming a marketplace for only that which comes from each one's contact with their inner being. The quality of each article produced will determine its value and its salability. What comes from the center of a person's being, the truth of his being, is what will determine his ability to earn his livelihood in the coming days. This has always been true to a certain extent, but will become much more pronounced. This coming age of creativity, or the new creation, will come about by each creating their own personal reality through their thoughts, which then becomes their personality. To express this creativity is much more difficult for the men. They are having a much harder time adjusting to the changes that are upon us, both as a society and also as individuals. They will have a more difficult time learning to use their creativity, but they must not deny it. Men need to have the emotional release of beauty through creativity to help soften and color the male ego and make its masculinity at its finest. Women need to have the ability to be able to create beauty and express it in a powerful yet dainty and feminine way. For some, the expression of creativity may just take on the form of planning, cooking, and serving a balanced diet to their loved ones, but this is their form of creative outlet, of giving love and expression from the center of their being. For another, it may be growing flowers in their garden, their love of nature being expressed through the growing of these beautiful flowers, and most often giving them away as their gift to their fellow man, and what a beautiful gift it is. The mineral kingdom expresses love in many different ways also, the gemstones through their beauty and other minerals through health-giving qualities. Flowers express their love with their perfume, the very essence of their being. Other plants and trees express love with their healing qualities or the comfort they give with their shade. Birds express their love with the beauty of their song. Other animals express their love with their gracefulness or their agility or their beauty. The human kingdom is no different than the other kingdoms. What greater way could love be expressed than by following the lead of the kingdoms ahead of us in nature? Each human expresses love through their very special abilities. It will not be the same for all. The essence of each one is different from all others, and the best way any can express love is by doing what he does best, to express the beauty of his or her inner self, and humbly offering it to his family, the rest of humanity. All do not have to be Picassos or Beethovens. The shopkeeper may express his inner self in his window displays. For some, it will be through their livelihood. For others, the expression will come in their leisure moments, but it must come some way or other. The goal, that of synthesized man, will only come through the expression of the soul through the arts. The sooner this is realized, the quicker an entity will be able to accomplish his goal. But if he is constantly and continually trying to do this through perfection of the physical body, or through the education of the mental body, he will never achieve it. It must be done through the emotional body, through some form of self-expression, through the arts, through beauty, coloring, harmony, the bridging between the higher and the lower. It has been well known for a long time that using crafts with the mentally retarded through art projects is a great help to them. This works exactly the same for all. It would be far better to pick up a paintbrush and paint an amateur or even ugly painting than to take a tranquilizer or aspirin or alcohol to calm the nerves. Even those going to health clubs would do well to spend half the time spent at the health club in an artistic pursuit of some sort. In the competition of today's world, it is hard to draw a fine line between self-aggrandizement and common sense advertising of one's abilities. The truth of which one you are into will show in the ultimate long-term, not short-term, staying power of your particular product or craft or art or whatever it is you are wanting to accomplish to earn your daily bread. For most of humanity, earning their daily bread will not change quickly from what it had been, but will evolve rather slowly. It will be by simply being a humanitarian and helping your fellow man in any way or through any opportunity that presents itself. This in turn will bring the opportunities to you that will show you wherein lies your special talent or niche in the scheme of things. You may try many different ways of lending a helping hand or serving in some capacity in charitable work before you find what it is that you are really good at and makes you personally feel satisfied, full, and complete. Then you will have found your own personal way of serving humanity. At this time, you must take this idea or service or product and work with it and bend it to form it into a structure that will enable you to do it on a full-time basis to earn your living and supply a service that you are good at and that is good and beneficial for you. By this time, of course, you will no longer care if you become rich or not as far as money is concerned, because your own personal satisfaction will be all that matters. You can do as much or as little of the service as you need to fulfill your financial obligations. The importance of creativity can't be stressed often enough because this releases the brakes holding back the soul, which then opens floodgates for the streaming through of the spirit of truth. Most of the great inventions on our planet were brought about this way. A lot of the great music flowed out this way. Once the flow is started, it feeds itself and continues to become deeper and more beautiful. Writing works exactly the same way, speaking also. Once it starts flowing, it becomes more of a pure flow. Life in the future will be based on the harmony of all people. Harmony will be achieved when each person gains self-esteem. Self-esteem only comes from expression of the soul. Expression of the soul can only come through the arts. Our future will be likened to the opening the door to a bright, clean new house and furnishing and equipping that new house with the best possible furnishings and equipment. This future will be based on the age of creativity. Another thing that will help with the forming of the new creation is for humanity to learn more about the proper use of energy. This enlightenment will carry over into all phases of life in the new creation. The air that hits plants or humans or a body of water is energy, a vital, sparkling, tingling, alive energy. Picture a glass of water with an Alka-Seltzer tablet dropped in it. This activity takes place on top of the water and would be a good description of what the energy waves hitting Earth would look like if you could see them. All the teachings coming through in this time period, including these chrysalis teachings, have one ultimate goal in mind: to teach humanity the correct use of energy and all its many manifestations. All life and creation is based on energy, and the new teachings must be on its use and misuse in all areas of creation and life forms on any and all planets. We of the higher planets simply have more experience in learning and experimentation in the uses of energy. Therefore, our attempts to help educate humanity from this realm in this area. We live lives similar in rhythm cycles to yours, but different in day-to-day activities. We worship our Creator the same way you do, only we can become part of Him while worshiping Him. This is extremely hard to explain, but we'll try. Because we are thought form energy, we can think ourselves home and be there instantly to be renewed and rejuvenated by the energy found in the central core. This energy is in the form of warmth, beauty, and love, so encompassing that one worship session will last us for 2 to 3 years of your earth time. This is what worship should be on your plane, a sense of communion with your Creator, which you will find inside your mind and thought form. You really end up worshiping yourself, the God within. The correct use of energy is one of the 7 new concepts being brought onto the earth plane for the move into the new consciousness. Humanity needs to understand much more about energy vibrations because this is the one great influence on everything in the universe. Humanity's understanding of how energy vibrations work is comparable to the kindergarten student's conception of how the atomic bomb works. Energy hits the earth at a set rate of 7 waves per second. This will change to 11 in the future. For now, I'm going to discuss the 7 waves per second. I'd like you to picture water hitting the beach. It hits at 1 wave per 30 seconds. Imagine it at 7 waves per second. You can't even mentally count to 7 in 1 second. It is a faster current of air washing continuously over Earth. This cannot be felt. It is not like a breeze or wind. It has a pulsing motion like a heart pumping blood. The pulsations are fast enough that they form a steady rhythm that is not sensed or felt, but nevertheless is there. This rhythm influences everything on the planet. You might call it the heartbeat of the Creator God that sends the blood through the universe. It does originate at the central core and is a steady stream coming up through the black hole that gave birth to Earth. It is what keeps Earth in place and turning and spinning. Picture a ping-pong ball sitting on top of an air jet. If that air pressure changes, the position and spinning of the ball will be affected. The birth of the new star that will take place soon is going to change the air coming up under Earth and change her position slightly and increase her spin slightly. She will be literally lifted a little higher, tilted just a bit, and will spin just enough faster to increase this pulsation to 11 pulses per second. Right now, if things on Earth could be timed to harmonize with these 7 beats per second, they would work well. Yes, machinery also. The human body, plants, bodies of water, everything in nature is in harmony with them, or they are ill or not growing well, or in the case of water, not being cleansed. The bodies of water will clean themselves constantly if the proper pulsations hit their surface. Any pollutants on the surface block the pulsations and affect the cleanliness of the water. The trees and plants are affected the same way. The smog in and around our cities has the effect of coating the plants, so the pulses are not felt as they should be. This is part of the need for rain, not only to water the roots, but to wash the dirt and film from the growing plants. Humans are affected probably to a larger degree than plants by anything that changes these pulses that are hitting the body at all times. Dirty, polluted air is, of course, the worst offender. The body, the lungs, and heart do adapt in time, just as they adapt to altitude changes, but it takes its toll on these organs. If a limb is kept in a cast for any length of time, it is affected because the waves cannot reach through that cast. It begins to die because of the lack of these energy waves. The energy waves are made up of many different particles of bubbling, fizzing matter, a combination that has many elements beneficial to all life on Earth. These are so infinitesimal that at present on Earth we have not the means to dissect these energy waves, so their makeup is not known to us. When the way is found to analyze and break down the ingredients in the elixir of the universe, then will the new energy form be understood. I want to discuss the energies coming into the Earth today. There are many things being affected by the strength of these new energies. It is the energies from other planets that are being beamed to us from spaceships that are above us. The energy from these other planets has always affected Earth more at one time than another, depending on the position at any given time of that particular planet in relation to Earth. With these ships close in now, these energies can be controlled. For instance, the energy of Mars or Saturn or any planet can be increased or decreased from what it would ordinarily be. These can only be done when their position in relation to Earth is at the right place. The timing of the energy will not be changed. They can only control the intensity of the energy. The energy from different planets has a different effect on humanity and also on plant and animal life. The study of the effect on plant life has not been thoroughly pursued. It needs to be. Each species of plants is affected differently in its growth by the different energies. It would be similar to drawing up an astrological chart for the vegetable and fruit crops. These energies will be harnessed in the future and trained on fruits and vegetables through colored lights in the fruit and vegetable barns. These lights are the different energies coming from the different planets. Animals are affected the same as humans by their birth times and places, not to as great a degree, of course, but only as much as evolution has advanced that particular animal. Animals can be trained by controlling the energies they receive from birth on. For instance, a litter of pups can be separated and one of them be placed constantly under red light, which is an aggressive energy from Mars. Another can be bask in amber light with a marked increase in intelligence, and so on. The same concept can be applied to humans. This would be a furthering of the astrological chart. In other words, once the chart is laid out in red and the goals are known, then the colors would be used to increase the energy of the particular goal. This is taking astrology one step further, an aid to getting more out of having your astrological chart done. These same energies can be applied to music. An instrument could be built using the energies in the form of intensified colors to activate the sound, which would be a combination of strings and air. The beam of light would heat the air to a certain degree, depending on the color, and the air would cause a vibration of the strings, not wire strings or plastic, but what is called gut strings. The different keys on the keyboard would cause different colored lights, alone or in combination, to activate the different strings. This gives forth the most beautiful sound. A soothing, calming tone is produced. This is the xylolute, an instrument of the future. It is not an electric instrument. There will be no such thing as electricity used in the instrument. The energies themselves will be controlled. They will be minutely drawn out of the atmosphere itself by magnets that attract the different energies to activate the lights. Think of it as a solar battery that will always be charged. The instrument is actually battery-powered. This same process will be used in the medical field, only the channeling of the energy will be put to different uses. The mineral kingdom is also affected by energies, but only as storage areas for them. This field can and will be greatly elaborated on, and much use will be found for different crystals, natural crystals, not man-made. These crystals can, even now, have the energy they give off intensified by leaving them under different colored lights. The uses they could have are many. One use is in radio transmission. Another is in healing and preventative medicine. They will also be used in transportation, in climate control, and even more. The new creation is the understanding of the new teachings, although a major portion of humanity will never be able to understand these new teachings. They simply are not evolved enough because the human heart is tied emotionally to the biblical story. Whether we know it consciously or not, we quickly find out we are when we try to break free of former beliefs. This is not just a result of this lifetime, we must remember, but of every incarnation we have had in the last 2,000 years. Each religion embraces part of the truth, but only part. This is not the direct fault of any on earth today, but it is the fault indirectly of all on earth today, because we were all here on earth as other entities when the misinterpretations crept in. Therefore, we are all equally to blame, and we are all equally capable of correcting the wrong teachings. As a matter of fact, we helped write and shape and form the biblical story. We must now help write and shape and form the new creation. Any creative enterprise that is undertaken is doing exactly that, and this fact must be kept in mind by anyone who attempts to create an item that will be read, used, looked at, or listened to. Take, for instance, books. Non-fiction books are the ones that will have the most effect, because people realize to a certain extent when reading fiction that it is make-believe. I believe that authors and publishers should take responsibility for what is put before the public, as this is what is shaping the future. Without free thinkers, the evolution of humanity will progress nowhere. It could even conceivably regress, and will if some fundamentalist religions have their way. It should frighten and anger people to realize that closed minds could undo all the good of the one teacher who did indeed enter to save them, but save them by trying to educate and enlighten them, not save them by being crucified on a cross. The only way any of this can be accomplished is through education. Early education is the fastest way. Jesus was indeed humanity's savior at that time period, but evolution continues and a new savior is needed now. How long can one man's teaching stretch to save people? He himself has gone past the teachings he once gave and is trying and has been trying to update them. As he himself has grown and evolved, he attempts to pass on new concepts to humanity to update his previous ones. Wouldn't a professor in high school or college do the same thing? As they upgrade and update their own education and learn new theories and concepts and experiment and test and prove them, wouldn't they try to share these with their students? To not do this would not make a very wise teacher, would it? Doesn't humanity think that the Christ is wise enough to want to update outmoded concepts that he once taught to his people? This upsets him, that they won't give him credit for being that wise of a teacher. These teachings coming through at long last are the best effort so far by the Christ at updating humanity's outgrown clothing. How long can they go around with clothing that's too small, too tight, that constricts and binds them and keeps them from expanding? How also can they ever hope to see him if they do not keep pace themselves with his own growth and evolvement? People must use their intelligent reasoning mind and expand the cells within their universe to take advantage of their unused gifts. One thing the churches are doing right is that they are serving the purpose of keeping humanity reminded that there is more to them than just their materialistic everyday lives. So even though they are not always able to help people find their higher self, they at least keep them aware that there is a higher self. In the restructuring that must take place in our lives and in society, there needs to be an understanding of the role the churches will have in the new picture. Worship in the future will not be held in churches. It will either be in the outdoors or in a musical greenhouse environment for true spiritual worship, which is, after all, communion with the Creator. These structures or gardens will also encompass all of his kingdoms in one way or another. It will be a place of the most beautiful spiritual happenings that will be available on earth, because when all the components of original creation are present, it will bring spiritual fulfillment at long last to humanity. These worship gardens will be enlightening and inspirational lecture, concert, art displays. Can you picture going to worship in a beautiful garden environment? There's nothing to block your communication with yourself, which is what worship should be. Instead of sitting in a stuffy closed room that is often dark and gloomy, you would be free to experience all the beauty of your existence. Instead of listening to another person's sermon, which is actually attending his or her university, you would be attending your own university, your own source of information. The need for love that humanity has can be filled by true spiritual worship, which is the communion of your mind, body, and soul as one synthesized unit in complete rapport with universal harmony. It can be accomplished and should be on a regular basis as food, if you will, for the soul, a feast of love that will be fulfilling to each on a different time schedule. In other words, one may need to have this period of worship weekly, another daily, and another monthly. It is a very individual, personal need of each one's soul and can be accomplished in any place. It does not and probably will not need to be in a church building. The creative channel is available to all. When it opens up in an individual, this is their rebirth into continuity. They will no longer need to have anyone else find the truth for them, because one person's truth can never be another's. The newest and best spiritual concept is the opening of humanity's mind as to other forms of life on other planets. We are not alone, have never been alone, only in our own minds, by being locked into a thought form that got its start when certain passages were deleted from the Bible. Any reference to visitors from other planets was deleted, and this closed the lid of the coffin on humanity in a way that could not have been planned any better by a mastermind, because it dealt their spiritual life and knowledge a death blow. This was and is a much more serious problem than any yet realized. Our non-enlightenment as far as other life in the firmament besides ourselves is unfortunate, because it does make higher spiritual ideas much harder for the teachers and guides to put forth to us. Just a simple belief in other life forms is all that is needed to open wide the spiritual doors. There is no way anyone could have foreseen how serious a problem this would become as far as blocking the minds of these divine sparks and preventing them from attaining their birthright, their divine mind, which each of them have, unused for the most part, as an integral part of them. It can be compared to a lamp with a bulb in it that is connected to an electrical outlet but is never turned on at the switch by the homeowner. Picture all this unused light and untapped energy, and then consider that only one light in every 10,000 people is ever turned on. You will perhaps get a better idea of the frustration and disappointment of the teachers and guides at not being able to light up the other 9,999. When one's lamp is lit, he does have a spiritual obligation to show the way to others and help the higher beings try to light up the other dark bodies. To deny this obligation, then, would be to isolate your light and dim its brilliance and not let it be a beacon to others in their dark hours. This would be the ultimate in self-centeredness and selfishness, and would then, in turn, set back your own evolutionary progress and growth and be a detrimental lifetime for your seed core. In other words, to not let your light shine would destroy a lot of good hard work and growth that has taken place in the past lifetimes. It is time to move on. Each stage of evolvement for humanity must change. It cannot possibly stay in the same mold that it has been. It must continue to change. The Creator's world is changing constantly at every second. How can people believe that they can just stand still? They cannot. Progress has been made, and more will be made. The more that awaken at this time, the faster this progress will be made, and the diseases and sicknesses of humanity will then have a better chance of being eased. When will humanity accept their potential? If they could only realize what they are capable of, what great powers of the mind they do possess, they would realize more fully that they are indeed God within themselves. They are belittling our Creator when they do not develop and use His mind power that He instilled in all of them. They are certainly not using the glory He bestowed on them. They are but poor imitations of what He expected of them. It is ultimately their own progress in evolution they are hurting. Each individual is hurting all others, and the Creator also, when they refuse to open their minds to the great glory of which they are capable and start believing these truths. This was what Jesus tried to teach them, but most only give lip service to believing and truly don't believe it. They seem to think that the physical form is all there is. When they understand the coming together of the genes from space with the animal forms, the merging and the struggle for control of the form, and the death of the form, and the return of the spirit to experience again and again in new and different forms, they will eventually accept the truth. It has to strike a familiar chord somewhere along the way. Those of you who know the facts in these teachings to be true, and those of you who do not believe the churches have the facts right, must stand up and be counted. There is no longer any time left to sit on the fence or pretend to follow the beliefs of the churches. You must all come out into the open and start expressing your views. Certainly this will take courage, the courage of your convictions, but we need to have your strength of belief. The more support and belief in man's divine heritage, the more certain he is to be able to achieve his inheritance. Ultimately, it is up to man himself. Free will be the victor.